channel. This is day 8 or part 8 for our 30 days React challenge. And today we're going to learn how to pass props to a component. React component use props to communicate with each other. Okay. Every parent component can pass information to its child's component by giving them props. Basically, props is used to have a communication between your parent to child. It's like a property transaction, like your parents give you a property, same way. That's why the name props come from. Props might remind you of HTML attributes, but you can pass any JavaScript values through them, including object, array, and function. This is awesome, like you can pass any value, object, array, and function is very important. We will see later on how. So you will learn how to pass props to a component, how to read props from a component, how to specify default values for props, how to pass some JSX to a component, how props change over time. Okay. Familiar props. Props are the information that you pass to JSX tag. For example, class name, src, alt, width, height are some of the properties you can pass for an image. So here is an example. For props, you can send any value. It can be a class name, your source link, your alternate text, width and height values for an image. Let's see how they're doing it. So we have a component called avatar. How do we know it's a component? Because it starts with the capital letter in the function name. Then in return, you are sending an image, okay, tag which has width, height, alt, in src, and this is the avatar component is being called in your profile component. Okay, and this is the avatar. Let's see, who is she? She is Lin Lang. Okay, the props you can pass to an image tag are predefined. React conform to HTML standard, but you can pass any props to your own components such as avatar to customize them. Here's how. Let's see how a props can be passed to a component. So profile component isn't passing any props to its child component avatar. You can give avatar some props in 2 steps. Step 1, pass the props to the child component. Okay, pass the props to the child component. First, pass the props to the child. So basically, parents has to have some values to be passed to their children. So you have to have some value in parents, then only you can pass it to the props. Let's pass 2 props, person and size. Okay, person will be an object and size will be a number. So this is avatar and this is person. We are passing. This is how you pass. Wherever you're calling your child component, you just need to add the name of the object and the object value as here. The double curly braces we already know is nothing. This is for have using JS and JSX, and this is just an object, and size is 100. If double curly braces after person confuse you, remember they are mainly an object inside the JSX curlies. Awesome. So this is how you send your props. Now how can you read the props inside your child component, or for us it's an avatar? To read the child, though these props use like name and size separated by commas. So in your function, in form of parameters, you can just add 2 objects with person and size. Person will have the value of person, which is you passed in your parent component, and size will have the value respectively. Add some logic to avatar and use the person size props for rendering, and you're done. Now you can configure avatar to render in many different ways with different props. Okay, so first thing first, we go to our profile where we send 2 props, size with value 100 and person with an object name and image ID. Then we will go to our avatar. Avatar has an object, person and size, and in person, and you add the values. Yeah, get image URL basically fetch the image because we are sending what we are sending just an ID. So basically get image URL will form your image URL and add it to your src, and then we have alt, we will add the person's name, description, width and size we are getting from size props. Okay, this is the name we got. Okay, let's change a little bit. I'm going to change it to 80, and I'm gonna change it to 100. Oops, I'm gonna change it to 120, I guess. Oops. So this is how the image is being changed in avatar. Some props let you think that things about parent and child component independently. For example, you can change the person or the size props inside the profile without having to think about how avatar uses them. Okay, so basically parents, you can modify the stuff in parents and do not have to worry how child will handle it because they will. Similarly, you can change how the avatar uses props without looking for the profile. So you don't have to, if you want to change how you want to use your props, you can just focus on your child component and do not be worried about the parent. You can think props like a knobs that you can adjust. They serve the same role as an argument server for function. In fact, props are the only argument to your component. Voila, voila, voila. This is very important. Props are the only argument to your components. Okay, so if you are getting any argument in your component function, always remember that it's a props. React component function accepts single argument, a prop object. So basically, this props equals to all the this props is an object with its key value as the name of all the props you are sending. So props person will have the person value, prop size will have the size value. Usually you don't need the whole props object itself, so you destructure it into individual props. Okay, pitfall. Don't miss the pair curly braces or curlies inside your parentheses while declaring the props. So if you don't use curly braces and write persons and props, it will give an error. The syntax is called destructuring and is equivalent to reading the properties from a function's parameter. So basically, you are automatically open your props object and getting the values person key in this argument and size value in this argument. But if you don't open it, so you have to write props, and then as to access an object value, you use props dot name. Specifying a default value for a props. If you want to give a default value to, if you want to give a props a default value to fall back on when no value is specified, you can do it with destructuring and putting equal or assigning and the default value right after the parameter. So suppose you don't have size value, you can just put equal to 100. So if parent does not send any props with size value, 100 will be used. Now, if avatar person is rendered with no size prop, size will be set automatically to 100. The default value is only used if size props is missing or if you pass size undefined. Okay, so if you send a props size with value, suppose 120 or 300 or something, this size will have 300. This value 100 will only be available if the value is missing while getting from your parent component. Okay, but if you pass a size equal to null or size equal to value, the default value will not be used. So it doesn't matter whether, even if you send up, like, it doesn't matter what the default value is. If you are assigning some values in your parent component, that will be the more priority one. Forwarding props with JS express syntax. Sometimes passing props can be very repetitive. Like here, person size is sepia thick border, and here they are adding all this to your avatar component. There's nothing wrong with this repetitive code, but it can be more legitimate. So instead of separating each key and again adding it to your child component, you can just write avatar and in curly braces just spread your operators, and basically it will add all the values. But at times you may value conciseness. Some component forward all their props to their children, like how this profile does for avatar. Because they do not use their props directly, it can make sense and use more concise spread syntax. Okay. This forward all the profile props to avatar without listing each of their name. Awesome. So basically I don't have to write each and every property of it. I can just access it with the spread operator. This forward all the profiles prop to avatar without listing each of their name. Use spread syntax with restraint. Okay, you should not use it always. If you're using it for every other component, something is wrong. Often it indicates that you should split your component and pass children as JS6. More on that next. Okay, it indicates you should split your component and pass children as JS6. What's the indication? Okay, so basically passing JSX as children, it is common to nest and built in browser tags. Okay, sometimes you want to nest your own component the same way. So we have one component here, card, and inside the card we have avatar. When you nest content inside JSX tag, the parent component will receive the content in a prop called children. For example, card component below will receive children props to set avatar and render in the wrapper div. Okay. So, okay, let's stop. Use spread syntax with restraint. If you're using it with every other component, sometimes something is wrong. Okay. So if you are sending for each component you are sending the same piece of props, then something is wrong. Often it indicates you should split your component, okay, and pass children as JSX. Let's see how to do that. Passing JSX as children. It is common to nest built-in browser. So we have div and image. Sometimes you want to nest. So how we do that? Like nested browser tags is basically you have one tag. Inside that tag, you add the bunch of other tags like normally we do in HTML. Same thing you can do with components as well. Like here, what they have done, card is a component. Inside the card, we added a component called avatar. When you nest content inside a JSX tag, the parent component will receive the content in props called children. So basically, this card component will get this avatar component in the form of props called children. Children will be your reserved keyword. For example, the card component below will receive a children props set to avatar and render it in a wrapper div. So let's see. So we have app.js where we have a component called card. Card will receive a children here. Okay. Now this children basically they are putting it in the div, and this div, this children in curly braces is nothing but your avatar. If you go to your profile, here we are adding your avatar and you are passing all the props data to this. Okay, and let's go to our avatar. Here you are accessing that data. Basically what they do. Now, okay. So let's go and read this sentence again. Using spread syntax with restraint. If you are using it enough in it every other component, something is wrong. Often it indicates that you should spread your components and pass the children as JSX. Awesome. So what happened actually is, suppose you don't pass it as a children. So first you need to pass this from your profile. Where is my profile? First, you need to pass this data to your card. Then in card, you need to pass that to avatar. Then in avatar, you need to access this data. So you are passing the props to two components, whereas it is required by only one. That's why you use called children props, so that you don't have to repeat or send your props again to other components as well. So, try replacing the avatar inside the card with some text to see how the card component can wrap any nested content. Okay, it, it doesn't need to know what's being rendered inside of it. You will see this flexible pattern in many places. Okay, try replacing the avatar inside the card with some other text to see how the card component can wrap any nested content. Okay, it doesn't need to know what's being rendered inside. Let's see something. Okay, let's do this. Even I'm curious. So instead of avatar, I'm just gonna add here an h1 tag. Hi. So it doesn't care whether it's a component or it's a simple HTML tag. How do props change over time? The clock component below received two props from its parent, color and time. The parent component code is omitted because it's used state and we won't dive it into yet. Okay, so they have two components. One is parent component and another is the clock component. Parent component they are not showing because it used some advanced topic which we have not covered yet called states. But basically just think state so parent component is just sending you time. Okay, and suppose if I changed color in my parent component, this will be updated in my child. So if I pick different colors using drop down like purple here, so it will get updated here as well. This example illustrates that the component may receive different props over time. Props are not always static. Okay, here the time prop changes every second and the color prop changes when you select another color. So props reflect a component data at any point in time rather than only beginning. So this props data what you are getting will always be the recent one. Okay, so if there is a change, anything you do in your parent component and this props value update, your child will receive the updated value. You don't have to worry about it. Okay, that whether this value is the latest one or not. So that's a good thing. However, props are immutable. Okay, a term from computer science meaning unchangeable. When a component needs to change its props, for example, in response to a user interaction or new data, it will have to ask its parent component to pass it different props, a new object. Its old props will then be cast aside and eventually the JavaScript engine will reclaim the memory taken by them. Do not try to change the props when you need to respond to user input like changing the selected color. You need to set the state. Okay, so you cannot change the props directly from your child component to parent component because props are immutable. So it's just a one-way data. Parents can give it to you, but you cannot give it back to your parents, at least not directly. Whatever they have given, you have to accept it as it is. You cannot change it or modify it. Okay, it will uh, if you really want to change it, modify it, you have to ask your parents. So basically what we do, we create an event, asking our parents component to please change this data and send us the new props, and then they will do that, and this old props will be set aside, and we will work on the new props. Let's recap what we have done. We have learned to pass props, add them to JSH just like you would do with your HTML. To read props, we use function avatar. We have used or we have read props using destructuring. We have read props using simple props. We have added a default value to your props. We